So today at Honored Madman, we're going to be talking about the Nox, who are one of the many residents of the Eternal Cities and the underground portions of the map of Elden Ring, also known as the Lands Between. I like to call these underground places and maps the Lands Beneath. Anyways, there's several different kinds of species that reside down here. There's the Fallen Hawks, who are these goblin-like, or really pale-looking goblin-like dudes who have, I believe, ghost flame arrows and wield ghost flame torches. They're usually centered around the Siofra aqueduct, I believe. There's the Minotaur-looking ancestral followers who are in ghost form underground, and then you could find them in non-ghost form, and I think they're non-ghost form underground too, but you could find the live versions near the Erd Tree and the Mausoleum compound in, I believe, eastern Liurnia at the Old Palace Ruins, which is like the Ul Palace Ruins that are beneath ground. There's also stuff like the Maliform Stars that are underground, and Crucible Knights, Dragonkin soldiers and stuff like that, but I'm mainly going to be talking about the Nox and the Silver Tears in this video. So what do we know about the Nox? First off, they're a cold-blooded race. They like to wear white, and they used weapons made out of hardened liquid silver, or tempered liquid silver. Very cool stuff, the whip-like mace and swords they have. Some believe that they must be related to the Newman race because of one line of dialogue from Rogier that says that they are the Scions of the Eternal Cities, which opens up a whole can of worms about America and the Eternal Cities and all of that, but we're not really going to go into too much detail when it comes to America's involvement because I want to make a whole video involving America's many conspiracies. There's also the fact that the Nox themselves look very different from the Newmans, but, you know, who knows? Maybe they're from the original one ancestor or something like that. Maybe they share a common ancestor. Who knows? But again, we're talking about the Nox today. The ones we encounter in the game are separated into three different classes. There's the Nox Monks, the Nox Swordstresses, and the Nox Night Maidens. Each one is a different rank when it comes to the religion of the Lord of the Night that they all believe in, which I will get into in a little bit. The Nox Monks are the lowest ranked ones, and they wield teardrop-shaped maces made of liquid but hardened silver, essentially used as whips with a fat mace head at the end. The Nox Monks also appear to be exclusively male, and they're the only male members of the Nox race that we meet in the game, which seems to hint that this race is at least somewhat female-dominant. They sport a simple white headdress over their armor, the most simple out of the three, and wear masks that cover their mouths. Next up we have the Swordstresses. They wear an elaborate cone-shaped headdress that covers their eyes and wield these whip-like shoulder curved swords. Basically a curved sword version of the maces I mentioned earlier. They often wield two of them. These warriors were the personal bodyguards of the Night Maidens. The Night Maidens were the highest rank of their religion. Now the Night Maidens probably are the least dangerous, but they're the most valued members of this cult. They wear an even more elaborate crown of two cones that cover their eyes, and they wield these small unobtainable daggers. At least to me, I'm pretty sure they're unobtainable. I haven't been able to get it no matter how many of them I've killed. But they wield this dagger that they use like an ocarina to play the flute, it looks like, and blow Night Maiden mist at you. So what are the Nox exactly? Well, Nox means night in Latin, doesn't it? That could have something to do with it, or it could just be referencing the whole Night Folk race. But while we're on the subject of the Night Folk race, I think that they more likely are Silver Tears as opposed to the Nox themselves, because if we look at the Night Folk race, they don't look anything like a Nox. They're not tan, and the Nox themselves don't bleed silver. It only ever says that the Nox are cold-blooded, not silver-blooded. The Nox themselves also seem to possess some kind of bewitching power when it comes to the ants. It's sort of purplish, which is similar to the Finger Creeper's purple grab magic that they use to ensnare you. The way the purple eyes look on the cavalry ants definitely just suggests some bewitching going on, to me at least. But first off, why are they living underground with all these fucked up things like the Dragonkin and the Claymen and the Malformed Stars? Well, the short answer is that they pissed off the Greater Will, or the Erd Tree, the Golden Order, you know, an outer god. The long answer is a lot more complicated. Some believe that they've always been residents of the Eternal Cities, some believe otherwise. The main pieces of evidence we have is the remembrance of Estelle, which suggests that Estelle kind of went down to an Eternal City and destroyed it and took away its sky. And many Nox-related items like their clothing pieces and stuff kind of back this up and say that they invoked the ire of the greater will and were forced to live underground, and now they live under a false night sky. And this can be taken a number of ways though. I mean, it could be that the Nox used to live topside, which would explain them being so tan, and that even their specific eternal city was topside until an Estelle showed up and destroyed it, burying it underground, in a sense taking away their sky and forcing them to live underground in their eternal city underneath the lands between. The malformed stars we see underground could be his offspring left behind from this assault or from all the destruction, or maybe just left behind intentionally to keep the Nox or the other residents of the underground down, because most of the stuff that's underground is stuff that the Erd Tree and the Greater Will wants forgotten about. They want kept out of sight and out of mind. And that would seemingly prove both theories true, both that the Nox weren't the original residents of the underground eternal cities, and that they were the original residents of the eternal cities, but not the underground. I mean, places like Sellia seemingly back up the fact that they used to live topside. I could make a whole video about my theories regarding Sellia, but I think I'll cover some of them here. Sellia is a town in Caelid, and it's known as the Town of Sorcery. It's home to many ghosts of many scholars from it looks like from the Rhea Lucaria Academy came there to even study. But it was founded by the Nox, and they seemingly employed at least one Alabaster Lord there, as that's where Radon learned his gravity magic. They also invented the night sorceries, which to me look really cool, but to enemies are seemingly invisible because they can't dodge them. It's actually pretty useful for enemies that dodge a lot if you're sorcery builds. Nox, of course, means night in Latin, so that's probably why they're named night sorceries, because the Nox are a night people. Radon is hailed as the hero of Sellia, and perhaps him holding the stars at bay is because they tried to send another Estelle down to destroy Sellia as well, and he kept it from that. There's many theories about why Radon held back the stars, some that he was doing it on behalf of the Golden Order because he was such a Godfrey fanboy. Others think it could be because he was helping his mom deal with the rebellion at the school because the stars were rebelling against the moon over back in Liurnia. But based on what I think I know about Radon, I now think that he saved Sellia from another Estelle type beast. There's a fun little theory based on the fact that the first Estelle we fight is locked behind progression in Ranni's quest, so we can't just go fight it on our own. That it didn't get there until Radon is defeated, and one of the stars he was holding back was Estelle, and it landed in super deep underground. I think that kind of requires a lot of suspending of disbelief, but it's a fun little theory. And I mean, it's entirely possible. I would never rule it out, but then what's going on with the one over at Yellow Annex Ruins? Sellia was also the home of the marble-headed master founding level sorcerer Lusat. A pretty legendary dude. I mean, according to Selin, he's almost a star at this point, or a child of a star. Lusat probably got his infatuation with the stars and the primeval current from learning from the teachings of the Nox at Sellia. I mean, it's unknown whether the Nox actually instructed there, but there are two of them that guard the crypt, so I think yes. And the Nox worshipped that dark moon that was said to be a guide for countless stars before it was lost, so I think it's entirely possible that Lusat was instructed by some Nox, or at the very least, he was just inspired by their teachings, which is much in the same way of several sorcerers we meet in the game. I mean, Celavis learned puppeteering probably from that Nox puppet he found. But anyway, moving on. The Nox also had a very unique architecture style as seen when it came to Sellia and the cities of Nokron and Noxtella. It also appears that the town of Ordina, far away in the consecrated snowfield, was also designed either in inspiration of the Nox or by the Nox themselves. Either way, it appears to be more evidence towards a connection between the Nox and the Albinaurics. Either way, the Nox architecture style stands out from the Ul style is what I'm going to call it, and that's the statues of bearded men that the Minotaurs seem to worship. Examples would be like found at the Lake of Rot or at the Old Palace ruins and the mausoleum compound found in Liurnia. They don't appear to have any direct connection with the Nox, although underground their ruins do sometimes intersect, which is mainly because all of the underground is just the graveyard of past civilizations that existed before the Erd Tree or that just pissed the Erd Tree off. But what's up with the Nox religion? They believe that one day some Lord of Night will come and save them. Now, they're an impatient bunch, these Nox. They've had several attempts at crafting a lord. I think the Dragonkin soldiers are some attempt at crafting a lord or mantling the dragon's powers or something like that. But there's also the Silver Tears. The Silver Tears, or the Mimic Tears, I'm not sure if there's an actual difference between the two, because the Mimic Tears look exactly like the Silver Tears in their basic form. But the Mimic Tears are yet another attempt from the Nox to craft their lord in their image. A YouTuber named Nularin re-added this whole quest to the game that was cut, and it involves the Mimic Tear ashes, but it actually makes you work to get them. So in this quest, you would have met this stray Mimic Tear, similar to the stray Mimic Tear we see in the Consecrated Snowfield, I guess. But this one would be called a Simi. And basically you breathe in its essence and let it live in you for a while, similar to how Melina lives in you, and she even comments on it, and it's like, oh shit, there's another person in here. I wonder if when you get Ranni's doll, they'll all three comment about it. That'd be a bit ridiculous. Yep, I got 3 girls inside me. Just kidding, a Simi sounds like a girl. But anyway, at a certain point you would have to drink from this chalice, and then that would be able to grant the Mimic Tear some kind of sentience so they can go on their own journey and become a lord, or a sovereign eternal, as they put it. I'm kind of speedrunning describing it here because I feel like I've digressed a lot in this video, but to me this confirms that Mimic Tears are sentient, and they very likely could be the Night Folk starting race, because if we look at a Mimic Tear, they're very pale and white in how they look, and look at the Night Folk. They're very similar. They also, the Mimic Tears, bleed silver, and so do the Night Folk, or allegedly. I've never played as one, so I can't really test if I will physically bleed silver if I play as one, but that'd be really cool if they kept that. Man, just a few things I wanted to talk about when it came to the Silver Tears. First off, several of them appear to be imbued with lightning for some reason, which is interesting to me because the Dragonkin soldiers couldn't even make real lightning, but these Mimic Tears can, which is further evidence to me that the Dragonkin soldiers were made as an attempt to create a lord, but were abandoned and relegated to a type of guard dog roles after the Silver Tears were invented. As the Dragonkin soldiers themselves can't produce real lightning, instead they produce this blue lightning that actually does frostbite buildup. It's actually pretty cool. Lots of different colors of lightning in this game. But aside from the Mimic Tears themselves, there appears to be 3 subtypes of the regular Silver Tears. There's the ones that are imbued with shock or electricity that can suicide bomb you if they want, if they roll up on you and then just detonate. They also detonate when killed with lightning, so that's helpful. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that they're liquid silver, so the silver is conducted through the lightning and it just detonates them. Tough to say. There's also these archer ones that shoot these coiled like needles at you. They're actually way bigger than a needle. They're more like a coiled fucking rod. They can also use the projectiles as a sort of rapier if you get in close and just kind of repeatedly stab you with it. And I think sometimes these archer ones are also imbued with lightning. And the other subtype are these ones that appear to have hardened part of their face or the front half of them into a shield-like kind of object. They're basically just defense mode ones, and they're really easy to deal with. Sometimes I think they are also imbued with lightning. I think all of them are sometimes imbued with lightning, sometimes not imbued with lightning. It's really interesting. In fact, I think it has something to do with the locations. I believe the ones in Nokron don't have any lightning, and the ones in Nokstella do. So perhaps it's Nokstella's affiliation with that Dragonkin soldier. Maybe that group of Nox was working on recreating lightning to maybe make a better Dragonkin soldier. It could be a number of things. I really don't know. And then finally, there's the Mimic Tears themselves, which I already mentioned a little bit. Now, after seeing Nularin's recreation of that Mimic Tear quest, I kind of got to thinking. I think that there's like 2 different kinds of Mimic Tears. There's the ones that we fight in the game, which one of them would have been a Simi from the quest, and the other one would be located in the Consecrated Snowfield. I think those ones are unique, extremely well-made Mimic Tears that can copy someone directly. In the quest, you have to breathe in a Simi's essence for them to fully like make a copy and drink from this chalice and all that. But in the final game, they operate like the Mimic Tears that just turn into a stock warrior using a spear or a weapon. But in this case, the slime morphs into you. The ones that aren't these unique ones appear to, like I said, morph into various stock NPC type warriors. In some cases, these Mimic Tears can even turn into stuff like a troll, like the one found in Nokron. I definitely didn't see that one coming. They can also turn into these boulders and just turn into literally not really a boulder, but like a giant ball and just roll around and try and hit you. I never actually saw one turn into one of these balls, but I read somewhere that that's actually the true form of these sentient moving balls that we find in Nokron. But yeah, it does seem like the ones in Nokron were more geared towards the mimic tiers, and the ones in Noxtella are more geared towards like a lightning style dragon slaying type of mimic tier. Not really a mimic tier at all, because they don't really mimic, they should just be called silver tiers. But anyway, I digress, moving on. But that's enough talk about those lightning silver tiers. There's also one instance in the game, I believe, where we can find possibly a mimic tier. I think that the Brothers D, as I like to call them, the D brothers, the Hunters of the Dead, I think at least one of them is a mimic tier. I don't think they're both mimic tiers. That'd be kind of goofy. I think the one we find in Nokron just slumbering is a mimic tier, because it says something about them both sharing one mind but having two bodies and all this. It sounded a lot like they would have expanded on it more if they would have left Asimi's quest in, possibly have some kind of proof. I mean, as it stands, Dee's brother looks like a knight folk starting race, I believe, and to me, I think those are either silver tiers or the descendants of silver tiers, or maybe the descendants of the Nox, but the Nox look like completely different. I mean, they have a completely different complexion, they're way darker, they're way taller seemingly too, so that kind of rules that out for me, at least them being the descendants of the Nox. It's also interesting how it says that the D brothers were ostracized and hated everywhere they went or where they came from. And the Eternal Cities and the Nox and the Silver Tiers, they kind of hate the Golden Order, so it would make sense that these Golden Order fanboys would be ridiculed and kicked out of their home. It's tough to say, it's a fun theory, it got really very little to back it, but felt worth mentioning.
Like tears in rain.
So while we're on the topic of lords, though, I believe Ranni is attempting to become their lord, or the lord that they've been awaiting, not their lord. But this mysterious Lord of Night mentioned in all their descriptions seems to have at least some connection with the stars and the night sky that Ranni mentions. Either that or she's using means created by the Nox to fulfill her own ends. So get your tinfoil hats on. Here's my theory about the whole fucking thing. So long ago, the Nox pissed off the Greater Will. There was this black moon that they worshipped. The black moon is mentioned in the description of the Moon of Noxtella, which says it was the guide to countless stars. The use of the word stars seems to be intentional there because Ranni wants to be the Lord of Stars. But this black moon that the talisman was designed after a city was destroyed and its worshippers were banished. Now I believe the dark moon is the counterpart to Renalla's full moon, and so naturally it came to Ranalla for help. The dark moon was then entrusted to her daughter Ranni, who was an Empyrean, which was a big deal in the lands between, and someone who could become the next eternal god, basically. Someone who had the makings of a god. Now, I don't believe it all happened so quite literally. I think that the dark moon took the form of this snowy crone that's always mentioned, because the dark moon is always mentioned to be cold in all this. Now, I know I've entertained several theories when it comes to Ranni's mentor, but this one seems the most solid. I don't think she was actually a wraith caller or was a Moor. I think she was the disguised version of the dark moon itself. If the dark moon was some like sentient sort of outer god, like I think it is, I think Renala pretty much took her to the woods where the dark moon was hiding out and was like, you know, here you go. And that's where Ranni encountered the snowy crone, the witch, who used the doll as maybe a body. Or maybe she just made herself look like that because the doll was said to be crafted in the mentor's image. But the Moon of Noxtella mentions the dark moon as the lost guide to countless stars, and Ranni basically wants to become the new guide of stars. There's definitely correlation there, and the fact that Ranni uses Nox means like the Finger Slayer blade to kill her fingers, and the fact that E.G. wears a Nox helm. It seems to me that Ranni and her accomplices are all followers of the religion of the night or whatever that the Nox follow. E.G. himself seems to have some idea of what she has to do and the path she has to walk. But if this is all true, then the Age of Stars ending is like the Nox's final revenge, and Renalla's revenge too, because look how she got did by Radagon in the Golden Order. And to me, that puts the Age of Stars ending into a much better perspective, and it makes Ranni seem a lot more cool. Obviously, it's not without its cost though, because EG gets killed by Black Knife assassins and Blythe loses his mind. But you can't take any half measures, I guess. One of the last things I want to talk about is, what did the Nox do to piss off the Greater Will so bad? I mean, what could they possibly have done? Well, there's a couple of theories. The first has to do with their scientific pursuits. Now, we've already talked about how they made the silver tears, which are said to be mockeries of life, which is the type of stuff that the Erd Tree and Greater Will finds blasphemous. It's also possible that they created the Albinaurics. At least the first gen ones, in my opinion. I believe the second gens to be the work of the Ray Lucarians using leftover research from the Nox or something like that. Like they made it better, but at what cost? Now, I don't have any hardcore evidence to back this up, but the Nox appear to be female dominant, just like the first generation Albinaurics, at least to me. We don't see any male warrior Albinaurics of the first gen, only female archers who ride wolves. The first gen Albinaurics also appear to be pale of skin and bleed silver, just like the Nox. The Nox were obsessed with creating things in their image, and these Albinaurics appear to be in their image. Speaking of first gen Albinaurics, does anybody know the story of why that one random first gen Albinauric is lying dead out in the Academy Gate Town? I don't know, its placement always seemed intentional but kind of weird to me. Anyway, the Albinaurics are also said to be born from a mother of silver, which is the same mother that bears them armor, which reminded me of how the Nox use silver as weapons. Maybe the Albinaurics developed this practice of using silver as armor, as some sort of homage to their creators, or maybe it was a slap in the face of their creators because they were creating these things for defense as opposed to offense. It's really tough to say what the relationship, if there was any, between the Albinaurics and the Nox. I just felt like it was worth mentioning. But if the Nox did indeed make the Albinaurics, it could be one of the reasons the Greater Will was like, look, you've had enough. We're done with you. You can't be creating fucking homunculus. The other possible reason behind why the Greater Will hated the Nox so much could be that the Nox just kept creating stuff to oppose the Fingers in the Greater Will. I mean, they created stuff like the Finger Slayer Blade, which could literally kill sets of 2 fingers, effectively severing part of the Greater Will's hold on the lands between when a pair of fingers is killed. They crafted stuff like the Mirror Helms, which were able to mask individuals from the influence of the 2 fingers from their many eyes and ears and all that. E.G. took a play from their book and made his own because he was so scared of the reprisals of the Greater Will, something he would unfortunately live to see if you happen to complete Ranni's questline. Now, just for the fuck of it, I'm going to throw off my theory regarding why there's a random Astella and Yellow Annex tunnel. I think it was sent down by the Greater Will to destroy the Hallowed Tree, but it was imprisoned either by Malenia or maybe even those Frenzy Flame Blight Giants or something like that. But it wasn't able to get its job done. That's really the only possible explanation I can think of behind why that fucking space bug is there. I mean, it is strange that both Astells are near places that have to do with other outer gods. I mean, one is found in a ruin that has to do with the Flame of Frenzy, and the other one is found beneath the Lake of Rot. Now, I don't know if there's any importance behind that, but there could be some. It could be something I explore in a future video. I also can't seem to figure out the significance of the giant Nox women who sit on thrones that we see at the arena for the Dragonkin Soldier of Noxtella and where we get the Finger Slayer Blade. They may have been a type of elder, as there's one located in Nokron and one located in Noxtella, so they could very well be the city's elders or something like that. Although I will say that the imagery of a super tall woman in white sitting down is very similar to the large Albinauric woman we find in the consecrated snowfield, whose name I believe is Philia. But she's a part of Latenna the Albinauric's quest, and she refers to her as a big sister. She could in fact be the mother of the Albinaurics, but it's tough to say. She could be a new version of the mother of Albinaurics, possibly. A descendant of the original mother. Tough to say. So I was thinking I was going to use the Tears in the Rain clip for this video, and I probably did end up using it. But I had this thought while I was editing everything together, and it was that the Silver Tears are very similar to the androids in Blade Runner. I mean, they were created for a purpose, and, you know, they aren't particularly loved by their masters. They're just kept around and used as tools. And it was just another interesting comparison I thought I'd make because I used the Tears in the Rain clip from Blade Runner in reference to the Silver Tears. Just something I thought worth mentioning. One last thing I wanted to mention about the Nox is that it appears that they seem to be native to Liurnia, as the Church of Vows has a Nox-like statue in it. The church is also affiliated with Celestial Dew, which has a lot to do with the Eternal Cities and the Nox. I kind of enjoy this format as opposed to writing out a script personally. Although there is things that I will still write out scripts for sure, like the Ranalla video coming up. Now, I can't find any direct evidence confirming this, but I believe the Nox also created the occult art of puppeteering. Basically, the act of turning other beings into puppets to use as your own personal henchmen. Something that Celivis, the preceptor of Ranni, is very fond of. My main piece of evidence behind this, though, is that there's this set of puppets, the Swordstress and the Night Maiden, that are said to be really old and crafted in the Eternal Cities. It seems like something that the Nox would do too, to preserve themselves longer, but I don't really have any proof behind that. Just something I thought I wanted to mention before the video was over. But that was pretty much everything I know. If I missed anything, please let me know. If you have any alternate theories or anything to add, please let me know. If you liked the video, please like. If you disliked it, please dislike. If you like my videos in general, I would suggest subscribing. That would really help me out a lot. You guys are pretty cool. I'll see you next week. No, not next week. I'll probably see you tomorrow. Have a good one.
O young yet towering sister of ours, let the birthing droplet in and create life for us, for all the Albinorics. Thank you. I finally fulfilled my purpose. Our young yet towering sister will give us hope. Now that nothing is left unfinished, I will join you in battle to the bitter end. And when the fighting is done, then you may lay me to rest. Beside Lobo, my dear wolf.